right, good morning, beautiful students, and welcome to the culmination of the tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. Our main focus for the end of this unit, as far as an assessment, is going to be this expository essay. And this week's assignments are going to lead you through the writing process. And the next 4 pages on this document really kind of lay everything out for you. And it really shouldn't take too long to do this. The largest part, I believe, is going to be gathering the data, going back to the documents that you've already completed and looking back at your active reading. That may take a minute. But most of the time is going to be spent on the next assignment, which is drafting. So let's get through this first part of the process. And as with any assignment you're ever given, especially an essay, you want to read all the way through the packet and really look at what the requirements are. So here it's an expository essay, which means you're really just exposing the reader to your knowledge of a certain topic and you're informing them. And specifically, we're going to be looking at literary devices and elements and how the author uses them to convey a certain message. So we're analyzing literature elements and informing at the same time. The format is what you're used to. It's MLA format. Multi-paragraph essays, which will be, a multi-paragraph essay, which will have CDW body paragraphs. And those body paragraphs together will contain at least 4 pieces of data. Now, just to go a little bit further on the length of the paper, right, it has to be 4 paragraphs with at least 4 pieces of data. So it's multi-paragraph and looking for 4 direct quotes from the actual play. Now, you'll have 4 paragraphs at least. So the first paragraph is your intro paragraph. The 2 body CDW-DW paragraphs are paragraphs 2 and 3. And then your conclusion paragraph will make up that 4th paragraph. You'll have a separate works cited page at the end, which I'll review with you when you go into the drafting process. But keep in mind that it's optional and preferred to add more body paragraphs if you see fit, especially if you find a lot of data. Let's say you have 6 pieces of data that you could use to prove your point. Maybe you have 8 pieces of data and you really want to expand on it. You're more than welcome to do that. But I would limit the essay to that length if you're feeling sparky. Now, as far as the data is concerned, it does have to be a direct quote from the play itself. It cannot be any type of summaries or interpreted parts of William Shakespeare's work. So no paraphrasing, no summary, just straight up direct quotes in the Elizabethan language, and follow MLA format for quoting poetry, and specifically poetry in a drama, which again I'll review with you in the drafting process. Your audience are your peers who have already read and studied the play, so they're aware of the plot. And so when you're giving your introductions or your transitions to your direct quotes, you don't have to give a lot of plot summary. You can just basically give us a very quick direction of where that quote is coming from. The points will go into your academic writing portion of your grade, 100 points for the final draft. And it is a large portion of your grade for this second semester, so definitely spend some time on this process. Don't just, do it in one night. Not that you would ever do that because you're angels. But here's the prompt, finally, right? I want you to state William Shakespeare's theme, which is a message or an insight to life concerning love. And I also want you to discuss at least 2 literary, poetic, or dramatic elements that he employs to convey that theme. So there's your 2-part thesis, and we'll break that down a little bit more here when we get to the brainstorming and graphic organizing. I've listed for you the possible literary, poetic, or dramatic elements. If there's one on here or there's not one on here that you would love to use, just let me know. And then down here at the bottom, we have the essay writing process, which is pretty important because unlike the past 5 weeks of distance learning, this week you'll have to actually turn in assignments at specific times throughout the week. And the reason for this is to really get you to do that writing process, right? Make sure you are getting used to these steps, because sadly, right, when you go off next year as sophomores and leave me, you're going to have to be doing most of this on your own. So you want to make sure that you get this process down pat. You'll notice that there are assignments that need to be submitted to Schoology and Turnitin.com. And because we are distance learning, I'll be grading your final drafts online through Turnitin.com. All right, the second page is the brainstorming. And really what it does is it just breaks down the prompt. It asks you some questions that I'd like you to quickly brainstorm answers to, right? You can just list them here. It doesn't have to be complete sentences. I just want you to get some ideas. You're going to highlight the message from this step that you think may be the strongest message, right? If it's between two of them, just kind of go back and forth, and you can keep one in mind for later, right? So maybe this might be one you're like, maybe, but this one you're like, yes, okay, great. And then when you get down to step 4, I want you to circle as many of the literary, poetic, or dramatic devices or elements that you think you could use to prove what it is that you've learned about love up here. So we've done a lot of work with these literary devices, some of them not so detailed, but let's say, you notice that, the motif of death comes out quite often, so I could definitely use that element to prove the theme about love. There's a lot of foreshadowing, definitely with the characters and their soliloquies. I could possibly incorporate some allusions. There's definitely a lot of mythological allusions throughout. And of course, figurative language, right? Imagery, maybe even in the form of a simile or metaphor. Maybe I could even use the prologue, right? Maybe that's something that I could incorporate into proving what it is that I learned about love. All right, so now that you've done that, you want to highlight the 2 or 3 literary devices that you've circled that you think maybe you'll have the strongest evidence to prove whatever it was that you learned from Shakespeare about love. So I'm definitely going to choose a soliloquy. Let's see, definitely some motifs. And one more I think would definitely be imagery, figurative language, because in reality, similes and metaphors are figures of speech, so I could incorporate that somehow into there too. And that's it. So it's really not meant to take too long, okay? And once you've done that, you're going to come to this page and you're going to plug in what it was that you just brainstormed into this organizer. Hopefully with the objective of having a clear plan of development when it comes to creating your thesis statement. So here I've told you to go back to steps 2 and 3 and write down what theme you want to focus on concerning love. So you just flip back up here to your document and you're like, I said maybe for this one, but let's go with this one. So I'm going to plug that in here, right? And so you just write it out, blah, 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 blah. And then you go back to steps 4 and 5. And I want you to at least have 2 literary devices here, and then possibly a third. You could even have a 4th if you're feeling sparky. But you definitely should have at least 2 from steps 4 and 5. So I'm going to come back up here and look at what I circled and what I highlighted. And I think, I'm going to do soliloquy, motifs, and then figurative language, okay? And then once you've got this all together, what you're going to do is you're going to combine all of this into one statement and write it out down here. Now I've given you some sentence stems that you could use to actually go ahead and mimic when you write out your thesis. But when you're done, I want to make sure that you write out in full, complete, beautiful sentence format, including the title and the author and the genre. Ooh, yeah, the tragedies in the actual title, so you're good there. But write it out, and that's it. And once you've got your thesis and you've got your plan of development here, you can come down to the outline worksheet. And really what you're doing here, you're just going to transfer your thesis that you just wrote out, okay? And then you're going to go back to the part of your graphic organizer here where you listed the literary devices 1, 2, and 3. And you're going to put those literary devices right here, even the optional one. So for me, right, I started off with soliloquy, then I said motifs, and then I said figurative language, okay? And then what I'm going to do, and this is the part that might take a little bit of time for you, is I'm going to go and find evidence, at least 2 pieces of evidence from soliloquies that are going to prove this message about love. Then I'm going to go back, I'm going to find probably an example of one motif, because I should have 2 examples. 2 examples of the same motif to show, of course, that it is repetitive. But I'm also going to make sure that it connects and proves this theme about love. And then finally, because I really do want to push myself and expand on the point that I'm making in my thesis, I'm going to include figurative language. And I'm going to find 2 very strong examples, again, of figurative language, and making sure that whatever examples I choose, whatever support I have, really does prove what I've learned about love. And then finally, you're just going to sketch out a conclusion here. You're going to restate your thesis. It's not really important to summarize your data right now, but it's just a reference that you should definitely highlight these 3 things if you haven't already when you restate your thesis. And then you're going to tie it back to that attention grabber. Sorry for the typo there. Whatever attention grabber you came up with here. And that's it. So enjoy. Really think about this prompt. I mean, it is about love. It is about heartbreak. It is about families fighting, right? Some angry people, the feud. So think about all of these different themes and how they all contribute to a message about love that maybe you've discovered by reading the sad tragedy of these 2 lovers. And that's it.